person of the CEO, I beg your pardon, of the Chamber of Construction. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on the Morning Star.
Good morning, my dear sister. How are you?
I am very well, thank you for asking. Happy New Year to you too, by the way.
Many happy returns.
So yesterday we saw the Minister of Designate appear before the vetting committee, and there were some, quite staggering revelations. For instance, in relation to debts owed or some obligations left with regard to the previous administration and all that, and even the kilometers, the numbers when it comes to kilometers of roads, of new roads that have been constructed, that were constructed by the previous administration before in leaving office. But first of all, what is your general assessment of how Kwame Gavins Abuja performed yesterday before the committee? Did he show a great appreciation of the issues within the sector?
Sincerely, we really admire the fortitude of the minister nominee, the way he really positioned himself in answering to the questions. That tells you that he has an in-depth knowledge about the industry, the sector that he has been nominated to come and lead. Because we work with him closely and he knows our grievances from A to G. So we were not surprised at all that he distinguished himself as well as being an industry person, an architect in that good standing. In fact, kudos to him.
Now, we told that as much as 135 billion Ghana cedis in terms of debt hangs over the road sector. That is quite a number. How did we get there?
Yeah, the issue before us is the 100 billion in question is an entire commitment that the previous government has engaged himself into. In fact, he threw it out there and he needs to at least expatiate on that a little bit. But you see, because of time, he was not able to. The issue before us here is, you and I know as a journalist, if you go out there, you see scattered of projects all over the place. Some contractors are somewhere, possibly at Nungwa, doing the Nungwa stretch, but because of IMF conditionality, they have been asked to move from site. Obeche Bilante stretch, what do you call it? Domi Kwabenya Brekusu stretch, what do you call it? Kumase, Kakradi, all over the entire country. Putting all together, that is a commitment that the minister is relating to. So it's not like, how do you call it, something, a debt entirely that they've left, even though it's a debt, but a debt package in a special way that comes with both, how do you call it, liability and an asset. Because at the end of those particular projects, it's going to serve the needs of the citizens. So definitely, it's going to enhance the how do you call it, our transportation system, as well as economic, how do you call it, system within the enclaves, the various enclaves. So sincerely, the 100 billion is what has been committed into the sector. Now back to the 20 billion he talks about, that is the GOG, which means those are the certificates. Out of the 100 billion, the certificate which has been raised, which is waiting on the table as we speak now. That is what the previous government has not been able to pay. So as they are coming, those certificates which is our work done and needed to be honored, the government of the day need to clear those certificates. So the responsibility of this current government is to look for 20 billion to pay the GOG certificate. Meanwhile, there are work ongoing at the various sites. So the portfolio will be increasing on daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Back to the 15 billion we talk about, that's the road fund. You know, the road fund has a dedicated account as a fund that has each source of revenue that comes into it. So therefore, every month, those particular revenue accrue, and then they channel it into the maintenance of our roads. So as the major roads have been constructed, now what happens within the urban areas, what then happens now is all those roads that develop problem, how they call the defects, what have you, they use part of those funds to patch them and to work on them. And then also street lights, fixings, and then its maintenance. Also, wayside weeding. All those put together, that is the portfolio, the debt portfolio. That's 15 billion as we speak now.
Now we are told that some of them are some of your members are owed very meager amounts, and looking at these debts and all that, what kind of efforts have been made in terms of settling these debts owed your members mostly before the exit of this administration?
You see, we try as much as possible for us to at least make the previous government see reason why certain certificate must be honored without delay. But unfortunately for us, it did not materialize. Now this very government has come to inherit it. The responsibility lies on them to make sure that those little things and the bigger ones, everything is clear. Meanwhile, you see, those little bills we're talking about, as I mentioned earlier, we call something wayside within, the side of the roads, that you and I, if you travel within our various, areas to our various offices, the side-by-side roads, especially outskirts of the town, you see that they always try to maintain it by engaging the services of this workforce to weed them. All these particular workers, most of the times their monies are not that much. Some of them 10,000, 12,000, 15,000, 20,000. It's not that much. So we advise minister that these people, their portfolios are not that much. So anytime I thought the rest certificates, try as much as possible to honor them. And then these people they are the downtrodden. You see, but how do we see? We try, it fails on the deaf ears. And that is what has transcended into the new administration. Now that the minister has been able to identify it, we pray, has been given the nod, he must try as much as possible immediately to clear those little things while we face the rest as well.
Now, the issue of tolls, he mentioned that yes, tolls are going to come back, but they would not be, in the form they used to be in. They are going to ensure that it is more efficient and people don't have to spend so much time paying tolls or interacting with other humans just to pay their tolls. Is this something the chamber is also in support of?
My dear sister, you and I engage ourselves on this subject matter, and then it went viral. It's the same position of the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry. We still stand by our position that the toll must be restored and then its collection must be modernized. Thankfully, the minister stated it yesterday. So it's a clear justification that your news has gone far, and then the minister also has taken a bite out of it. So all we are praying for is we are technical persons. We are professionals as well as businessmen. We travel at length all over the country. We see best practices. We have the expertise that we can also man our countries accordingly. So therefore, since it has come to the public domain that the minister openly admitted, all we need to do is, after giving the nod, we'll be engaging him. So that we bring the formulas to the table, discuss it well, and then becomes a policy backed by a policy paper signed by the sector minister or from cabinet. If that happens, we are good to go.
Now, when it comes to roads, usually for road contractors, when governments change, some of your members are rather at the receiving end of instances where the payments owed them are delayed and all that. Sometimes it will take them years to get those monies back. What do you expect to happen this time around?
You see, let's be sincere here. We must be honest to ourselves. We keep advising contractors that they should be apolitical. They shouldn't align themselves to any political coloration. Because immediately that happens and government changes hands, you are being seen as an enemy, no longer a business person. The type of politics we play in this part of the world is very boring. So therefore, as a business community, you must be very careful. If you want to be a politician, then open up and then go for political appointment and do your politics. But if you want to be a business person, as well as a professional, even though you have a soft spot for a particular political party, but be very careful that you don't leak it out. If not so, it becomes a witch that will be hunting you. You become a witch that will be hunting you. So, as you said, it happens in the previous administration. But this time around, with the second coming of JDM, we are praying that he's coming for his own. He should try as much as possible to temper mercy, justice with mercy, or mercy with justice, so that no matter the political coloration, as long as the person is worth it, as a business person or a professional, and can deliver and do the job to the satisfactions of the progress of the entire economy, you should try as much as possible and close certain eyes on some of these things and go ahead and do it.
What about money's owed you?
The money's owed, as you speak now, is a matter of what we call engagement. Now they have come. We need to engage the sector minister if being given the nod. Then we find a way out. There is a formula we have on the table that we are going to table before the minister, and then take it from there. If the buy-in comes, I'm telling you, it won't be long. You see a lot of changes within our various schools networks in the country. I said we will have the formula.
And out of the $135 billion, a billion Ghana cedis, debts hanging over the road sector, how much of that is owed your members?
Every contractor, every consultant, every artisan, they are members. So all those money belongs to our members.
All the 135 billion cedis?
Yeah, it belongs to our members. The consultants, the contractors, the suppliers, the distributors, the artisans, they are all our members.
Another conversation when it comes to roads in this country is the issue of street lights. What role do the road contractors play in all these? Because especially here in the Greater Accra region, at least for the various parts of Accra that I move, it's so dark. Our street lights are not working. What is the challenge?
The challenge number one is the ministry don't have the requisite resources to man the traffic within the various urban areas. And that is the problem we have today. The street lights must periodically be maintained. But after the maintenance, you need to pay the workforce, the contractor that work on that. But the payment doesn't come. Next time if you call me, it will be difficult for me to go back, because I need my money for me to actually turn around, buy other things, and go and fix it again. So, to be honest, that is what we are saying today. Secondly, you and I know anytime at all we buy electricity, we pay for this, our street lights and what have you. But where does those money go to? All those things are some of the issues that the energy minister must also, we are going to engage him so that we factor all those into the proper road construction and its maintenance. Either it will be lumped up to the contractor or outsourced to electrical contractor, so that periodically they move on to make sure that they maintain those particular street lights as well as our traffic, so that 24/7 we the taxpayers will benefit from our sweat. If it happens that way, if you are taking money from you, you don't cry, but you are paying the money. You are not seeing the its importance. You are not benefiting from it. So next time if somebody can, you close the door, you shut the doors on the person. And that is why we are as a country. But thankfully, new administration comes in a good will. Let's the new government try as much as possible to tap into the goodwill of the good people of Ghana, so that we can quickly turn around the fortunes of those particular sectors. Immediately it happens, you see that the energy level of the people will rise again.
One thing that the minister designate spoke about is the need for the restructuring of contracts to take out the 30% increase on unpaid certificates. Do you agree with that position?
You see, it's early days yet. The minister should take his time. He's a good friend, but he should take his time. See, all those things are a reason why part-time contractors become a bit relaxed over their unpaid money. Because he knows that even if it's 10 years when you pay me, I'm going to take it with interest. So if you are trying to say you are going to slap off those particular provisions, then the minister also must be prepared to also honor his part of the contract obligation. My dear sister, the contractor in question is a professional and a business person. The interest of the contractor is not for him to go or her to go out there and be looking for interest on project done. No. The major priority of the contractor is to work, raise certificate, pay him or her the requisite amount inside the contract. As simple as that. You walk away. But if you default, that's why that clause was put in the contract. That if I raise certificate and you don't honor it, then I also have another window to raise interest on that. That is a provision to deter as a deterrence to the awarding agency. That if you don't honor the certificate on time, this is what is going to happen to you. So the minister, we are not at fault. How do you call it? We are not going to be begrudging here, but we should tread cautiously. If you want to eliminate that, then you must also make sure that every contract he awards, he makes sure money is there. Immediately the contractor finishes work, he gets his money. No ambiguity over interest on payment. We are not interested in that. Our major priority, we work for you, pay as we go.
So that 30% is some form of cushion for you in the situation there's a default, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just like you and I, if you go to the financial sector and you take a loan, what then happens? There is a conditions in there. They give you either 6 months to pay or 1 year to pay. If you're able to honor that, what then happens? There's a compound interest, true of us.
True.
What?
And one final thing, the minister says that your members, as contractors, you should consider insuring your projects as well. Is it something that you're already doing, or something that you would, consider?
Yeah, every leader has his own ideology, and then the vision that they bring to the table, new energy they bring to the table. We are ever ready to at least realign ourselves and readjust ourselves depending upon the policy directives of the minister. So as he has made it known that he's going to engage all the private sector players, including all the sectors, all the stakeholders, we are ever ready. We will be engaging. And then for solar council of engagement is revealed known to the public. We are ready to help Ghana develop. That is our core call. And that's our core mandate. We have been mandated to do that. It's divine. And therefore, we must try as much as possible to help whichever government that comes to power. NDC, MPP, CPP, we don't care. All we want is Ghana must develop so that we also live peacefully and enjoy the soil of our tax, work done in here.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We're grateful for your time.
The pleasure is mine, my dear sister. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Same to you, sir. You had to speak to the CEO of the Chamber of Construction, Emmanuel Cherry. It's still the Morning Star, Hill Star 103.5 FM. We'll be delving into the education sector in a bit.
Yo, Pan, you ready? Hey. Man, let's lock it low. Yeah. Just play. Yeah. No, turn me up.
for admission fees for students undertaking courses in the normal subject areas, not professional areas like medicine. And for President Mahama, this is a model experiment. You will look at it. How do we fare as a country? If it is possible for expansion, then he will expand it. And he's not asked that if you are able, you should not. We know that some students even expand it. Kandiga is not America. Wulugu is not America. I'm sure one of the communities in the Winneba area is not America. They have access. The transport systems are network and effective. It is not so for Ghana.
So those are excerpts from the vetting yesterday of the Minister Designate for the Education Sector, Haruna Idrisu. He's also the Member of Parliament for Tamale South. Let's go over the telephone line and speak to the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Morning Star.
Hi, good morning. Morning to your audience.
I hope you're well.
Pretty well, thank you.
Right. I mean, you had mentioned in one of your Facebook posts that before the announcement was officially made, Haruna Idrisu, the Minister Designate, did reach out to you. Listening to him yesterday, did he display a good appreciation of the issues within the sector he's expected to head?
Sure, he did. He demonstrated an understanding of the fundamental issues in the sector. A better understanding, I must say, than I even expected, of the inequality in the sector, which is the sector's biggest problem. Education in itself is supposed to be used as an instrument to create equality, reduce inequality. Unfortunately, our education system in this country is making societies unequal. And we have a sharp divide in quality and access between rural and urban areas in Ghana, the north and south divide in basic education provisioning. And having demonstrated appreciation of that equity issue, which has seemed unsurmountable in the past 5 or so decades, I have an impression that he really understands what needs to be done to provide quality, equitable education for all.
When his announcement was made, there were some, concerns expressed by some that he's not a sector player, so they are not too sure how he would fare or how he can fare in that sector. Even though he's yet to get the approval and eventually get to do the work, did his responses yesterday provide some form of respite for those who had concerns about him not being a sector player and then coming to head that ministry?
Well, not being a sector player, I find it difficult to understand what the meaning really is. If you have worked with MPs, and I have worked with many MPs in the past, every MP interested in developing their constituency is first and foremost preoccupied with education issues. If you ask every MP, what social issues confront you most in your constituency? Or what social issues or intervention issues what social issues do you intervene in your constituency most? They will mention education for the first. And secondly, you will hear perhaps health. And then water and sanitation, and then roads. Education will be first. And so, to be in Parliament for 20 years and to be an outsider to the sector, then it means that they are not in Parliament. It's not possible because you will be involved in advocating the deployment of teachers to areas in your community, in your constituency that are unserved of teachers. You will be involved in advocating and if not directly procuring teaching and learning resources, providing scholarships, building infrastructure, etc., which is the A to Z of education service provisioning. So it is not possible to be an MP, a 2-decade MP in Ghana, in a rural constituency or a urban constituency, and still not be a sector player. So I never subscribe to that. I think that education is not meant for only educationists. I am not an educationist. I never did education. I read economics and law. And so once you have a better appreciation of how education is a social re-engineering tool, how it is a human right, and how it is a right that must be dispensed equitably and of quality, then you are a sector player. And so I don't see him as a non-sector player at all. And his responses yesterday confirmed my understanding of how an MP's work involves more or less education than any other issue at the constituency level.
Yesterday, he quoted, various figures for different issues relating to the ministry. Should we credit that to your work, many of your research work?
Well, as an education policy think tank, one of our focus areas is to do research in policy and engage Parliament. We work closely with many committees in Parliament, serving as a resource base for them. MPs are very busy, they don't have time to do research, and so we work closely with the select committees in the relevant fields and provide them policy advisory and then policy analysis support, research support, and like that. And so, yes, we are happy that MPs are using our work, both sides, to ask questions and also to respond to questions. At the end of the day, we aim to we aim to set education agendas and then mobilize opinions, mobilize political will to resolve such education agendas in a manner that education becomes of good quality and is accessible to everyone, poor or rich, regardless of geography, socioeconomic status, gender, culture, etc. So yes, that is exactly what we stand for. Happy to watch.
Some of the challenges he highlighted that needed urgent attention within the educational sector are the overcrowded classrooms, lack of sanitation facilities for young girls, and inadequate junior high schools, among others. Are these, as he pointed out, some of the real challenges confronting the sector, and reason for which he's advocating? He says that one of the priorities will be for him to advocate for the set in motion the processes to uncap the GET fund so that they will get access to funds to address many of these challenges.
Overcrowded classrooms, yes. Overcrowded classrooms, yes. We have a PTR that is below the national norm of 35. 35 and 30 for primary and then junior high. But, the PTR only exists on paper. Statistically, in reality, you hardly find schools having 30 pupils in the class being taught by a teacher in the public space. And so, a crowded classroom, yes. In Accra, for instance, there are schools like Owejagbawe, Plaster, Papa Roman Catholic, Adenta, Ashiye Model School. There are schools in Accra that have between 80 and 120 in one class, yes, and you can imagine what goes on there. And so, espousing the issue of crowded classrooms and how it affects the quality of teaching and learning outcomes, or the quality of learning, is key. And also tells me that he understands the situation on the ground in both urban and rural areas. Crowded classrooms may not be a rural phenomenon, okay, but the other issues he raised relating to infrastructure, dilapidated infrastructure, the removal of schools under trees and sheds, these are all rural phenomena that require redressing. And so I see an appreciable understanding of both the key challenges in access and quality across rural and urban populations. And once these issues are given attention, I think that it will help to improve the quality of educational outcomes in our schools. And then the mention was also made of water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities. Yes, about a third of our schools do not have access to adequate wash facilities. Toilet facilities are scarce in many schools, especially in deprived areas. Electricity supply in our schools is also another scarce commodity. About 40% of our schools do not have electricity supply. You go to a community that has electricity and the school hasn't got electricity. So they are not able to do ICT even if they had a computer laboratory. I'm not saying they have, because only 15% of our public schools at the basic level have ICT facilities functioning. And so you need electricity if you want to build modern schools where STEM, STEM engagement, useful STEM engagement, ICT engagement can take place. Electricity supply, it should be an essential prerequisite. It's a sine qua non. And so that conversation about ensuring that schools have water and sanitation and hygiene facilities, have electricity, and all those utilities is key. It's key in the education self-solutioning across all divides, both rural and urban, especially in rural areas.
Funding is a major issue for the ministry. He's talked about, kicking in motion the promise to uncap GET fund once they get the nod to, lead the ministry. Would that really help? Or there's more that we require when it comes to funding for the ministry?
We keep saying that the capping of GET fund was the single most disastrous policy decision that the federal government took in the education sector. It's not just single most disastrous because perhaps it would have been the worst decisions if we are ranking the bad decisions, but it is a single most disastrous because of its sector-wide impact. It had sector-wide negative impact on the ability of the sector to respond to the infrastructural needs, constricting equitable access. In a country where 1.4 million children are out of school, you don't deny educational funding by cutting or capping. It's the most dedicated source of education infrastructure financing. And so a decision to uncap GET funding is something we've been waiting for 7 years. We've been demonstrating every year when the budget is being read, calling on the Ministry of Education and Finance to uncap GET funding. And all of those calls fell on deaf ears. So we are happy that the minister is appreciating the need to engage the Ministry of Finance to uncap GET fund. And that is also captured in the NDC's manifesto. That is good progress through our advocacy and our engagement with political parties, both NDC and NPP. Once GET fund is uncapped, we are freeing about 30 extra billion cedis for education finance that we wouldn't have gotten if GET fund remained uncapped. Don't forget that the NDC has 140 plus manifesto promises in education alone. And many of them are infrastructural. Teacher Dabre is providing teacher accommodation, ensuring that new schools that are built have the component of teacher accommodation. Continuing the construction of senior high schools to end double track requires infrastructure funding. Completing abandoned E-blocks, turning some into dormitories is also an infrastructure intervention. Removing over 5,400 schools and trees is an infrastructure intervention. ICT integration, STEM, almost all the big ticket issues that they've raised or promises they've made in the manifesto have infrastructural methods. And so you need a lot of capex to do that. And in GET fund uncapping, you will have that capex. So that's a good decision. I encourage them to engage the IMF and then go ahead and uncap GET fund and free the resources for education development.
Speaking of funding, the minister-designate mentioned that the country would need about over 300, let me get the figure correctly, over 300, that is about 345 million Ghana cedis to implement the free tertiary tuition policy. That's a huge number. Is it good that at least they put a number to it?
Well, it's good to put a number to your policy, your promise. Promises are promises, but when it gets to implementation, you must cost them so that you're able to plan and execute them well. So yes, we put a number to the policy, to the promise. But the number alone is not enough. We need to develop a policy framework, and then a roadmap. Define parameters of the policy, and then also define the benefits package in the policy, so that we are clear in our minds who is benefiting, what amount is being paid to everybody, and then, for instance, what that fee might exceed that amount of paying, what is the cap, the main other issues, persons with disability, people with special needs who may have other issues that might increase their AFUF or their initial fee they need to pay. There's also the issue of delayed payments. We all know that schools have reopened, right? Okay, people have received conditional admission offers. They have 2 weeks to honor those conditions. The condition is that you have to pay your academic facilities fee. But the budget is here to be read. So how do you honor your admission? In 2 weeks, if you don't pay it, you will lose your admission.
Yes, I can hear you.
So in that case, a conversation that must happen immediately at the top should be how to negotiate with the universities to allow students who have been given admission letters but have been unable as yet to pay the conditional academic facilities fee that will lead to validating or confirming their admission, to pay it on credits, such that you can present the letter to the school, so that after the budget is ready in March, the government will redeem and pay this average of 2,350 cedis to the authorities. That is a decision that the government must consider now. Other than that,
the impact of the policy will not be felt
by those who need the policy most. By those who need the policy most at this present time. Yeah.
So you would want them to initiate an urgent conversation with management of the schools to allow these people in, and then because they've talked about reimbursing those who pay for the admission fees before the budget is ready.
It's perfect to reimburse those who have paid. But what about those who have not been able to pay? What about those who would have lost their admission by the time the budget is ready? Because they are 2 weeks to another. And so for those, there must be communication and arrangement with the universities. Allow them to formalize their admission, allow them to register, and then once the budget is ready, government redeems and pays the university, so that we don't lose people who genuinely need this funding just because the budget is late. And it will not be just for this year. Every year you will have this situation where admissions are done when admissions are done when the cash is not ready to be paid to students. Okay, so it will be an annual thing. So have a system where you can honor your admission on credit based on this AFEF facility for first years, and then when the budget is read and funds are ready, the controller and accountant general will redeem the cash and pay the investors, so that we're able to implement this policy every year. It is great and better for us if we target this policy. If we target it, it will mean that even though we are expecting 125,000 or so beneficiaries in year one, if we target it, who knows? Only about half of them might need that 2,750 to another admissions. In that case, you have an opportunity of giving 5,000 to those who genuinely need more than that, so that they can use the difference, support accommodation, and related expenses. And so it's a conversation we must have. But this is just a genesis. The policy hasn't been designed yet. It is now a promise. And so we hope that in the process of developing the policy, something will be factored into the policy to make it more equitable, so that those who will get more, so they remain in school. And then those who need less support will get less or get nothing at all.
Now, the minister has talked about, as a focus he would have. One of them is to, bridge the educational gap in the regions of the north. How bad is the situation there?
Come again?
The minister talked about the work he would do to bridge the educational gap in the regions of the north. And I'm asking, how bad is the situation there?
Oh, how bad? It's so bad. It's very bad. It's so bad you can't imagine. The gap, let me start from school infrastructure. About 80% of the schools on the trees, the 5,400 schools on the trees and sheds that we hear of, about 80% are in the geographical northern regions. 80%. When you hear about 1 million deaths required in these schools, more than 80% of that deficit is in the geographical north, and then western north and Uti. When you hear about teacher deficits, as of last year, in central Gonja alone, about 80% of teachers needed in primary and kindergarten were not available. 80% deficit in just one district. So every indicator of access, equity, access and quality, the gap between learning attainment, BEC at the national level, the gap between the pass rate at the national level and then in the deprived district, it's 20 percentage points. 20 percentage points. So the pass rate in BEC is 80% nationally, it's 60% there, it's 60% there. So there's a huge gap. It's not just the north, it's a rural urban divide thing, but the northern region constitutes the bulk of the rural part of the divide. And that is why we are we are happy that for the first time we are having a minister of education from the northern part of the country. Maybe having felt the magnitude of the deprivation would warrant a different approach. But we need to see what about deploying education resources equitably. If we continue to use these straitjacket approaches, we will continue to deepen the inequalities between the rich and the poor, the rural and the urban, the north and the south.
Before the vetting, you admonished the minister designate to, when he gets the nod, to call for a 20% budget allocation to the Ministry of Education. Why is that?
Oh, that is a minimum. That is a minimum.
A minimum, okay.
Yes, it's a minimum. It's a minimum funding norm. The international financing benchmark for education requires that the minimum that countries commit to education should be 20% of public expenditure. But you cannot advocate 20% of public if you are not getting, you cannot advocate 20% of public expenditure if you are not getting 20% of the budget. And so it starts with getting first 20% of the budget allocation, and then on the basis of that, you push for full budget execution so that you are able to get your releases and at least spend 20% of public expenditure. The reality is that in Ghana's case, we don't need 20%, we need more than that. And I'll explain to you why. The target of 20% as the minimum funding norm for education is varied between 20 and 25% because there are some countries whose education system is quite cheaper to run, like in South Africa, like in Kenya. South Africa and Kenya and other countries like Sierra Leone, like Liberia, they can afford to commit 20% to education because the education system is not burden, it's day. Ethiopia, all the countries in Africa, no one has a burden of education at the secondary level. It's day. And so the cost of secondary education is cheaper, 3 times cheaper than that of Ghana. So if you are a country with the most expensive form of secondary education in the world, which is Ghana, and I say Ghana is the only country in the world I know that has a public free secondary education system, which is boarding. It doesn't exist anywhere. I've not seen one yet anywhere in the world. So it means that because our model of secondary education is expensive, we cannot be doing 20% minimum funding non-target. We have to be doing the upper ceiling of 25%. And it's between 4 and 6%. We shouldn't be doing 4% of GDP equivalent to education. We should be doing 6. By 2012, we were doing 8% of GDP equivalent to education. So it means that there's a history that suggests that we can do more than 6%, which is a higher threshold, and even go to 8%. And so we want to encourage the government to make a commitment while ensuring that whatever it commits to education is spent efficiently to improve the level of spending efficiency, and also is spent equitably, such that we don't continue to deepen the rural-urban divide, and we don't continue to neglect one aspect of the education system against the other, or to the benefit of the other.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We're grateful for your time, sir.
Yeah, that's mine.
You had to speak to the executive director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, sharing some insights with regard to the minister's responses yesterday at the Appointments Committee. The minister designate for Education, Haruna Idris, who touched on a myriad of issues, including prioritizing bridging the gap when it comes to education in the 5 regions of the north. And Kofi Asare made us understand that when it comes to some of the staggering statistics with regard to the gaps in our education sector, most of it is found in the geographical north of the country. For instance, when it comes to schools under trees, it says about 80% of those schools are found in the regions of the north. It's still the Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM.